I'm going to show you today how to play Tinker's Construct. Now, one thing to note here is that this is technically called Tinker's Construct Free. What does that mean? It is the version of the mod that was made for 1.16 and above. This is specifically being filmed on 1.20.1. The mod was quite heavily overhauled from 1.16 and after. A special thanks to one of my viewers, Jan, for recommending this mod. If you'd like to see a mod get covered and have a tutorial series, please just comment down below because I'm always reading and want to see what mods you want covered. Let's get started then into Tinker's Construct. So, this is going to be a getting started guide to start off with. What do we need to do first? Well, when you spawn into the game, it's very likely you will get a book called Materials and You. This is a really useful book, even alongside this tutorial from Tinker's Construct. First things first, we're going to want to make a few work tables, if you will. The crafting station, the part builder, the Tinker station, the modifier work table, Tinker's chest, part chest, and cast chest. Some of these you might be making a little bit later. You'll notice when I right-click onto any one of them, I can click all of the rest of them at the top. And therefore, it's a very good idea to place them all next to each other so that they're connected so you can access all of them as you need from one single space without moving. So the first thing you're going to see here on the left was my crafting station. This is a crafting table that's been upgraded. You simply use a crafting table and add a pattern on top. A pattern is 2 sticks and 2 planks. I would generally just go ahead and make a stack of these because you will be using them a lot. If you're not familiar with Tinker's Construct, it's a fantastic, super customizable way of making gear and tools with a myriad of materials. It generally uses all the materials from all mods that you play with, so it works really, really well and integrates itself into the mods that you're using, so always check out what materials you have available to you. So start off making a stack of patterns, upgrade your crafting table into a crafting station. The items will actually stay in the crafting station, unlike the crafting table where they'll go back into your inventory when you come out of it. And that is the main draw, for me at least, using the crafting station. Then we have the part builder. And all of these machines or tables are made pretty much of some blank patterns and some logs, etc. The part builder is where we're actually going to be making the parts for our tools. So you're going to put your blank patterns in on the left, and to start with, we're only going to be able to make tools from very basic materials. In this example for the tutorial, we're going to be making a very basic pickaxe. What I'm going to do is hop over to the Tinker station and then come back to the part builder, where we're building the parts for our pickaxe. So, the Tinker station. This is where we can build our tool. So on the initial screen, what we're actually on here is this little Anvil icon on the left, where we can add modifiers to our gear and tools. But what if we want to make a tool? For example, a pickaxe. Well, we click the pickaxe icon on the left here. You can see I can click a saw, a pickaxe, etc., and it changes the icons that you see on the screen. Components. A pick head, tool handle, and tool binding. These are the 3 pieces we need to make in order to make our pickaxe. So let's go back to our part builder and make a pick head, a tool handle, and a tool binding. We're going to make them all out of cobblestone for this tutorial as an example. So we can go tool binding. Yep, I know I need one of those tool bindings, so I'm going to click tool binding and make that. And then I know if we scroll down, we need a pickaxe head, so there's pick head. We can make that. And what you can see is that we're using up a pattern each time. And this is basically making a pattern in here for a pick head so that we have a pattern for each of them. It's a stencil, if you will. And then we're also going to need a tool handle. And I'm going to click and drag out that from our cobblestone. Then I'm going to go to our Tinker station, click on pickaxe, and I'm going to put my tool head, my stone pick head in there, my tool handle in there, and my tool binding in there. You can see on the left, you've got this little swirly. You can actually see the item you've made, which is pretty cool. And now you can see we have stone pickaxe. I can name it. Please subscribe. And that's what I'm going to name the pickaxe. So you can name it. You can see the durability and any modifiers that it has on it. So we can see here that it has Stonebound 3 and Pierce 1. So what do they mean? Well, that's because of the materials we've chosen to use. I'm going to explain that more shortly. So down here in Modifiers, we can see Stonebound free. The tool mines faster as it wears out, but does less damage. And Pierce 1, attacks cancel out some of the target's armor. Cool. We can also see up here the durability is 117. This will depend on what materials we use, the melee damage it will do, the melee speed it will do, what tier it can mine at, so can it mine iron, can it mine diamonds, etc. The mining speed and how many upgrades it has available and what abilities it has. So it's got 1 ability slot left and 3 upgrade slots left. We take it out and we've now made our Please Subscribe pickaxe. But what if we want to add a modifier to it? Well, we click on the little Anvil tool up here, and then we can put our tool into the tool icon up here. What I'm then going to do is get an emerald, because I know that an emerald is a modifier that I can use. And I'm going to put that into the resource slot here. And what you'll see now is a little emerald appears on my pick. We can look at it down on the left, and you'll see that suddenly the durability has gone up to 175, but the upgrades have gone down from 3 to 2. Emerald increases durability depending on the base durability, boosts effectiveness of conditional damage and mining speed. So we can see here that when we add the emerald, it's adding the durability, and now it can actually mine all the way up to iron instead of stone. And I can just take out my pickaxe, and now we have upgraded it with emerald. And that is how you make a tool using basic materials and how to upgrade them. So what materials can we use? Well, remember that we got the materials in U-Book. And if you want to remake it, it's a book and a blank pattern if you have lost it or haven't got one. If we open it up, there's quite a lot in here. We don't need to read all of this right now. It basically goes through everything I've just said and shows you how to make them. Tier 1 melee harvest materials. So if you're making a melee weapon or tool, these are the basic materials you can use in the situation that I've just showed you in the Tinker Station. We can use wood, rock, so cobblestone, flint, bones, copper, chorus, leather, string, and vines. These are all the materials you can use in there for melee weapons. If we now go onto the next page, you can see it tells us all about those materials. Let's have a look at wood, for example. We can see that if you use it on the head, so the pickaxe head, it has a durability of 60. Mining tier would be wood if you use it on the pick head. Mining speed would be 2, and you get the cultivated buff. Tool practically grows more material when repairing, so I think it just repairs itself? Not sure. And it shows you that if you used a wooden handle, would you get any multipliers on the durability, the melee damage, the melee speed, or mining speed? And on the binding, would it again have any effects? No, not really. If we use stone, however, for the head, we'd have a base durability of 130, and it can mine stone, has a much better mining speed. However, if we use a stone handle, I think because stone is quite brittle, we'd actually lose 10% durability. However, we would gain 5% mining speed, and we get stonebound. It shows you on the right all of the tools you can use it on. We have flint, and it shows you that every point durability lost increases damage but decreases mining speed, and therefore you can see it's sort of like depends on what you're making as to what material tool you'd make. Bone would not be good as a handle, you'd lose loads of durability, but using it as a binding head or handle would be good for pierce as it cancels out their armor, for example. So using our pickaxe example again, let's work out what material would actually be best to use and then put that into action for each different tool part. So for the head, it looks like copper would be the best material because it has a base durability of 210 and it can already mine up to iron with 5 mining speed. It has dwarven. The tool mines faster and has more projectile velocity the deeper you mine, but loses effectiveness if you... I'm not sure. For the handle, I'd either go for copper again because unfortunately, it does lose 20% durability, but we do gain 10% mining speed. Or I'd go for chorus if you're looking for a high durability. We lose some mining speed, but we do gain another 10% durability. And for the binding, I would go for string because it has stringy. The tool can be repaired using string, which means that repairing our new pickaxe would be really, really easy. So I'm going to go into my part builder. I'm going to replace it for copper. And then I'm going to say copper tool handle, and I also would like a copper pick head. For my binding, I'm going to use string, and then I'm going to go into my tool station, pickaxe, shift click them all in, and as you can see, I've got 168 durability. I can mine iron with 5.5 mining speed. I've got Dwarven 2, Pierce 1, and Stringy 1. So I can repair the tool with string. It can mine iron. It's pretty fast and has an okay durability, which I can upgrade. And there we go. So that shows you the different kind of materials, etc. you can use at tier 1. Once you're set up with some basic tools and you've got your basic tables behind you, the next thing we want to do is start making a smeltery. So a great way of processing your ores in Tinker's Construct is using something called a smeltery, which is this over here. And it can be really, really amazing to upgrade your gear and get some tier 2 materials and above. Tier 2 materials are basically usually alloys and ingots that we can make in a smeltery. They're a lot more powerful than the basic ones that you see in wood and stone, etc. So to get going, we're going to need one of two things, either a seared fuel tank or a seared heater. This is going to be made with seared bricks. Seared bricks are made by smelting up grout, and grout is made with sand, gravel, and clay. You can make it like this, or you can make it like this. It's always one of the most tedious things at the start of a mod pack whenever I play one, and I've always oh right, I need to make a few stacks of grout and then I'm done. So you make the grout, you turn it into seared bricks, and you make a seared heater. The difference between the two is a seared heater uses coal or any solid burnable fuel to heat up a melter on top of it, whereas the seared fuel tank will use lava. Some ingots may need a certain heat in order to be turned into molten metal and may actually require lava. But for some of the starting ones, you'll be fine with just using a seared heater. Ideally, though, in my opinion, I would just go straight for the fuel tank if you can. On top of it goes a seared melter. So what I can then put in this seared melter is, let's go with copper again. So I'm going to get a raw copper here, and in these 3 slots on the left, what you can see is that the copper is heating up in the melter, and we're going to turn it into liquid copper. So cool, we've got 4 ingots of molten copper in the melter, and you can see it up there, which is really cool. What we can then do is get a seared faucet, and these are all going to be made with seared bricks, by the way, and we can just plonk it onto the side of our seared melter. Then what I'm going to make, I'm going to be really lazy and run over and grab this one, is a seared casting table. So what I can do here is actually make some tool casts that are made of something a bit more solid. So what I would actually do, you can use sand, which will disintegrate after. Otherwise, you want to use gold. So let's actually just put some gold in here. And if you're like, what am I doing with this gold? This will make sense in a minute, okay? So let's go into our tool part builder. And let's get rid of this silly string. Put copper in here, for example. And get a pickaxe head. And I'm going to right-click it into the casting table. And then I'm going to right-click in my seared melter. Not enough free space for the fluid. Okay, that's interesting. So the thing is with these melters is they're very, very small. So here's a problem with it already. You know what? Let's just upgrade straight to the smeltery itself. The smeltery itself then, and this is where you see that the small melter already becomes, it's not good enough, is a much bigger version, as you can see here. You can make it pretty much any size you like, and you just have to do it. Let's say it was 3 by 3. It would be like this. You don't need the corners on it, but you do need the floor inside done, like this. So that would be a smeltery, okay? Now, the main blocks you're going to need is a controller. So if you look at the smeltery controller, you can see that you need to pour molten copper over some seared cobblestone or any seared bricks in a casting basin, and you will get a smeltery controller. So let's make one ourselves, shall we? So you're going to put a casting basin rather than a casting table, and we're going to put a seared brick in. I'm just going to get some normal seared bricks, right-click it into that casting basin, and then right-click the seared faucet. And can you see then it's basically poured out the molten copper, and it's going to cool down on top of this, and we're going to get, if we right click it, once it's cooled, we get the Smeltery controller. Now we've got our molten gold in here, and I can show you what I wanted to before. But I'm just going to show you with the Smeltery. It does the same thing. So we have the Smeltery controller. You also are going to need your seared fuel tank, which is the same one you made over here. I'm just heating this from underneath using a mechanism tank, but you can use buckets to put this into here. It's entirely up to you. So you need the controller, the fuel tank, and then ideally you're going to have a few of these seared drains. Seared drains are how you get your liquids out. So a seared drain, again, can actually be made of 2 copper ingots and a seared brick, like this. You then get a faucet, and you plop that where the hole is so that your ingots and stuff can flow out. And I've got one here, a seared drain for a basin, and a seared drain for the casting table. So let's get that pickaxe head again that I showed you earlier, and we're going to start making some casts. So I'm going to get another copper pickaxe head. I'm going to come over to my casting table, and I'm going to look in here, and what you'll see is I have actually smelted up multiple different metals. Look how many ingots I can put in here at a time, right? And it's not that big. It's a crazy amount. So you can see here, molten silver is at the bottom. The bottom one is what will come out next. And as you can see the molten silver in the holes here, so you know that's what's coming out. But what if we wanted molten gold, which I've only got 6 nuggets of, so I do need to make some more, actually. Going to plonk loads and loads of gold in there, and it's slowly going to heat up. So what if like I said, I wanted the gold, not the silver? So what you can do is just click the gold, left click it, and it will move it to the bottom. And now the next thing that will come out, as you can see, is gold. So it's going to wait for that gold to heat up and become molten. Now, do be aware that in the Smeltery, something that can happen is you can make alloys. So, for example, I've got 5 blocks, 6 ingots, and 3 nuggets of molten gold. I've also got 6 nuggets of molten silver. But when you put molten silver and molten gold in the Smeltery together, you get electrum. So do be careful, because sometimes you might want to be making an alloy, and sometimes you actually might not want to make an alloy. So they will automatically alloy together in the Smeltery. The Smeltery is the only way to make alloyed ingots in Mechanism. In Tinker's Construct. So we've got molten gold on the bottom. I can right-click the faucet, and you can see here it's now drying to make the cast. And the molten copper, or the copper cast in the middle, has disappeared. And now I have a pickhead gold cast. What this means is, now that I've got this gold cast, so I remember I poured it around our copper head, is that I can make, say, a molten iron pickaxe head. So I click molten iron to bring it to the bottom, right-click on the faucet, and now it's going to be in the gold cast. It's actually going to harden, and I can right-click it, and I can get an iron pick head. And this is how you get the more advanced materials through the Smeltery. You make gold casts, and oops. So again, just to reiterate, what you're actually going to do here is make a copper or a cobblestone one in the tool builder over here, place it on here like this, pour gold around it to make a cast, and then you can start pouring whatever ones you want into that cast. Over here, I have got a cast chest, and this can store your casts for you. You just plonk them into here, and it'll store all of them up in there. Now that you've got seared bricks, you can also make this item, the Modifier work table, which is a much better version of the Tinker Station for adding modifiers, etc., to your gear. So it just gives you a lot more options, basically. You can also use the seared casting basin, and what this will do is it means you can actually smelt blocks. So I could just right-click on the faucet, and it will fill up completely with gold, and that'll actually be a block of gold. You can add like timers and levers to make it just keep running continuously. You could have ways of pulling out of this with pipes, so that it'll just keep running and running and running as like an automatic like ore smelting thing. So there we go, we've got a block of gold. One other thing you can do is a chute, which will input and output items from the Smeltery, and also make a duct. A duct is actually a filter. So what we can say here is if I go into here and I get a bucket, I can put this bucket in, and you can see it's taken whatever is at the bottom, which is gold. So I can take out my molten bucket of gold, and then I go into my chute, place in the molten gold bucket, and now this chute, or sorry, duct, will only output gold. So when I put a faucet on here, and maybe I could automate it with other mods, etc. if I wish, this will only output gold. You filtered the duct, which is a great way of filtering in the Smeltery. If we now go into this book, Puny Smelting, which is a piece of grout and a book, this is going to take you through pretty much everything I've just taken you through. It shows you the melter. It shows you how it works. Oh my good lord, who is that? This is how big and crazy you can get these going, by the way. It's really, really cool. You can use these as well, channels, but I've never really had much use for them. Like, it will split it out between these, but yeah, I've never really used them myself, but just FYI, it is there. You can also use copper cans instead of buckets. You can use sand instead of gold for a one-time use cast, but it will dissolve afterwards, unlike the gold, which you can use forever. Then it shows you making gold casts. And then it shows you a simple way of using automation with just a lever and some hoppers so that it goes into the hopper and out of the hopper into a chest, etc. Really, really simple. So now we have some tier 2 materials. We've got iron, seared stone, venom bone. Oh, and this will depend on the mod pack you're playing. You could have a ton of materials in here that I don't because of the mods you have installed. Slime wood, osmium, lead, silver. Like, for example, I have osmium because I have mechanism installed. Necrotic bones, scorched stone, end stone, and slimy veins. And then it takes you through the materials and, you know, how good they are, etc. And then it takes you through ranged materials, ones you could use in the Smeltery for ranged, and then armor materials. And it's the same in the tier 1 book. And it takes you through all of this and all the parts you can make, etc. And then it takes you through all of the modifiers that you can add as well, like diamond increases durability, mining speed, etc. Experienced emerald, magnetic. There's so many different modifiers that you can add in here, which are really, really useful for different things. But I'll let you read through all of those on your own. A few of the ones actually I will mention is redstone adds haste, and you can use blocks of redstone rather than, you know, dust to add 9 modifiers at a time. And then there's also lapis lazuli for fortune. One thing I will show you quickly is when you're adding things like lapis, etc. So let's use our ridiculous copper pickaxe earlier, and let's get some lapis. What you'll see is it has 3 upgrades available, and if I put 1 lapis on here, you'll see it says Killager, increases damage against villagers, etc. Oh, maybe it's not luck anymore. I think they've changed it. You can see it says 1 out of 45. So if I put that on there, it's actually taken an upgrade slot off. It's now down to 2, and it's 1 out of 45. So I can actually add, you know, 45. You can see it going up, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there it will be maxed out at 45. And then when I add another piece of lapis, it will use another upgrade slot, and it will take it up to Killager 2. And again, you can use blocks in here to go up at 9 at a time. So some modifiers like that won't just be a just one and done. It will actually need a lot of that item to get to the full potential of the modifier. And now you are an expert on the Tinker's Construct Smeltery. There is also one more book called Mighty Smelting, where you get seared stone and just cast it over a book. And this will get you the tier 3 tools, etc., and takes you over more about the Smeltery, but we've already explained all that. A few other things to note before we move on to really exciting stuff in tier 4. Entity melting, you can put mobs in there to get blood. You can put silverfish in to get seared stone. Villagers and illagers actually give you emeralds. That's interesting. Skeletons will give you milk, I guess, from their bones, and even more to discover. It definitely used to give you blood. Yeah, I think it still does. So at tier 3, there's things like slime steel. You may have seen there's floating slime islands all around. They can give you really, really useful tools. We're going to be going over the bits and bobs of this mod at the end of this video, so don't worry. We shouldn't be missing anything out here. Amethyst bronze, natural, pig iron, rose gold, electrum, necronium, invar. You know, there's loads and loads here, and you can have a look through all of those tier 3 materials, which can all be made in the Smeltery. One thing you can now make is the Tinker's Anvil, which is a much more upgraded version of your workstation. And what this can make is things like the sledgehammer, the the vein hammer, and the excavator, or the broad axe. These are really, really big weapons that can only be made in the Tinker's Anvil. The broad axe fells small trees in a simple swing and makes quick work of large trees. The sledgehammer will mine in a 3x3 area and is effective against undead. The vein hammer is a broad mining tool that harvests any connected blocks of the same type, so it's like ore vein mining. And the excavator does a 3x3 for dirt and gravel, etc., and sand. And the cleaver is like a gargantuan cleaver. Funnily enough, you will need things like a large plate and a tough handle for these, which generally take about 8 materials rather than 1 in the Smeltery, and 3 for the tough handles. So these are going to be much, much more intensive when you're building them, but really, really worth it. And now you can make that with the Tinker's Anvil. The Tinker's Anvil does require quite hefty materials. You can make it out of quite a few things. Refined glowstone. Is that easy to make? I'm not sure. Invar is an easy one. Again, it depends on what mods you have into what material you can make your anvil out of. Netherite, rose gold, signalum. It really depends what you've got in. Oh, obsidian, refined obsidian, so you'd need mechanism. Bronze. Netherite is the easiest one if we're talking about, or electrum. Oh, you can make electrum. It's just silver and gold. There you go. That's probably the easiest anvil. But that can make those much bigger tools. Speaking of which, now we must go on to the Nether for Tier 4. So next up is Tier 4 then. And you are going to need to go to the Nether for this. The first thing you're going to see in the Nether, often near lava and quite low down, is Nether cobalt ore. Now, because this is from the fiery depths of hell itself, we do actually need something even hotter than lava in order to burn this. And then we get to the Foundry. So we had the Smeltery, and now we have the Foundry. The Foundry is really interesting. It works exactly as the Smeltery does, with all the same things. Now, I did notice I had to... you can see there's this red box appearing here. I had to actually put a floor in the corners here for the Foundry. So where the Smeltery never needs corners and the flooring is only, well, you can't really see, but the flooring is there, but like it's not on the walls. The Foundry does seem to need it to be a wall for the floor and have corners. So that's just what I've noticed. So if you have trouble and you're thinking what the hell's going on, that's what my observations were. Foundry controller, blah, 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 same as the Smeltery. This one will not alloy. So if you are putting in silver and gold and you don't want to be getting electrum, you won't in the Foundry. How do we make the Foundry? Well, we need scorched bricks, which is made from nether grout, which is magma blocks, soul sand, and gravel. So it's actually quite simple. You just need materials from the nether instead for nether grout. Now, if we're going and getting cobalt, which is the really advanced material that we can get in the nether, and we want to cook it up, well, we can't with lava. Like I said, we need something hotter. We need this here, blazing blood. Now, to get blazing blood, you need to actually burn a blaze in your Foundry, which sounds really difficult, right? What the recommendation here is that, see, you're in a nether fortress and there's the blaze spawner. Well, you just set up a Foundry, as you can see, kind of like around this, so that it kind of tricks the blaze into just falling straight into your Foundry, and they're going to burn up, die, and then you get blazing blood. That would be the easiest way to do it. I still think it's a little bit tricky having to do all of this to get blazing blood, but hey-ho. You can also trade with piglins to get blazing blood as well. And the way you can trade with the piglins to get it is through Ichor, an Ichor ball here. And you can melt so you can trade with piglins to get the Ichor balls. However, to melt them down, I think Ichor crystal cruster, you will need some blazing blood. Yes, so basically, you need to get a little bit of blazing blood from the annoying ways I just showed you. Then you can trade with piglins for Ichor balls, which when melted with blazing blood in the Foundry will get you some more blazing blood and more ichor. So basically you can kind of keep putting it through, I suppose. So you can use the trading to get it, but you will need a bit of blazing blood to get you started. Another way is actually, you'll notice that Tinker's Construct adds blaze heads. And no, you cannot use blaze rods or blaze powder to get blazing blood, unless the mod pack you're in has changed it, which may be possible. They'd have to recode it. But by default, you cannot get blazing blood with blaze rods or blaze powder. You can, however, get them from blaze heads, melting down blaze heads in the Foundry. You will need the severing modifier. Not just the heads, but the feet and the feathers potentially blasts heads or other parts off targeted melee right off. And it looks like a cleaver, which I showed you in the Tinker's, what's it called? It's in the Tinker's Anvil. The cleaver here, it looks like will actually do that for you. So that is how you can get blaze heads, which is another way of getting your blazing blood. But overall, I think the Foundry is really useful. Once you've got your blazing blood in there, we can then melt down our cobalt. But what can we make with cobalt? So I'm going to go into JEI, click, and then press U on molten cobalt, and go to alloying. With molten quartz and copper, I can make molten hepatizan. With molten debris, which is literally like ancient debris, or diamonds. So one thing I may or may not have mentioned is that when you melt down things in the Foundry, you may get a secondary resource. So melting down a diamond ore will get you 1 diamond, but also 3 nuggets of molten debris. Now, I'm not sure if that's guaranteed, but you can get it. We can also get molten manulin. Yeah, that's the one with the cobalt and the molten debris, molten manulin. And you can see here that it does need blazing blood. So you can always see if it needs blazing blood or lava. And then with magma, molten gold and molten cobalt, we can get molten queen's slime. If we make the book Fantastic Foundry, which is a never grout and a book, we can actually look all about the Foundry here. And you can see your tier 4 resources that you can make with it. And as you can see, you can get blazing blood by carrying. You can carry the blazes? How interesting. Oh, look at this. If you were to, you might suggest drink fire resistance, then use a piggyback pack or an ichor sling. Perfect if you want to get burnt to a crisp. Interesting way of doing it. There's also the Foundry method, head melting. Maybe we don't want to melt the entire blaze, if I could find a way to sever the head off. Or melting. Foundry not portable enough? Try turning your tool into a handheld Foundry. Perhaps Thrall is smart enough to make something worthwhile after all. Interesting. With a pickaxe, etc. And it shows you what you can use on there. Or bartering with piglins. Then we have the tier 4 materials. Cinder slime, queen slime, hepatazal, manulin, blazing bone, ancient hide, and slimy veins. You can see like the durabilities, etc. here can mine netherite and are really fast and really strong. On all of these are pretty amazing modifiers here. And there we go. That is tier 4 and the Foundry. There's actually quite a lot of other cool stuff that Tinker's Construct adds. For example, the slime cake. You can mix slime grass and jump higher shortly after eating the sky slime cake. Magma cake makes fire bother me less. I wonder what ender slime or earth slime does when consumed. There's the piggy backpack. Using a piggy backpack on a mob lets you pick them up to ride you. Perfect for when your pig gets tired on long journeys. And they're also good for tossing monsters into your smeltery, like blazes, for example. I've successfully worn up to 3 at one time, though it's hard to walk with so many riders. The flint shuriken. Sharpening flint into a star shape creates quite an effective projectile weapon. While it's nowhere as good as a bow, it produces good knockback and damage, which can help you escape. There's the quartz version as well. More damage, less knockback. The glow ball, which are made from glowstone and snowballs, is basically a throwable light source. It will light up areas that obviously you can't reach with a torch. There are fancy item frames that are added. In fact, there's quite a lot of decorative items Tinker's Constructs add. And the thing is about these fancy item frames, the clear one can turn invisible when an item is placed inside, so it looks like the item is just on the wall on its own. Diamond gradually reduces the rotation until the item is upright, supports more rotations than a standard frame. Manulin always appears fully lit, even in darkness, and Netherite is resistant to fire and explosions. Then we have we have the modifier work table, of course, and we've got some really interesting modifiers that we can add to our tools. Damage tools, which seems very bizarre that you do that. invisible ink, and this will hide modifiers from view, just making it a bit more aesthetically pleasing. You can then use visible ink to refund that happening. A compass will magnetize your tool. And if you use a wet sponge, you can actually remove modifiers from tools that you no longer want. Apparently, spider venom is also effective. You can extract and upgrade using sky slime crystals and lapis. And the same goes with defense and abilities as shown. We have slimy seeds and slimy saplings. You may find these in chests and things like this, which can grow the slime islands for you. Necrotic bones. And then if you want to get dragon scales, you can hit the dragon while it is healing, and TNT can also be effective. Then we've obviously got the sky islands, which you've seen around. They're pretty cool. They have a lot of slime on, etc. And there's also clay and blood islands as well, which have magma cubes and clay on them. Ender slime, sky slime geodes, earth slime geodes, and ichor geodes. Obviously, the ichor geodes would be amazing for getting that blazing blood. There's a few staffs that Tinker's Construct adds. The sky slime staff leaves a lot of room for modification, grants higher draw speed at the cost of velocity. The earth slime one is one of the most defensive ones, has higher block potential and accuracy, but worse projectile power. The ichor one, which grants velocity at the cost of draw speed. Ender slime. And it shows you what these ones can do. There's a melting pan, which mines meltable blocks. Interestingly, there's skulls that when you put in a casting base in and add ender slime, can enhance their ability as a helmet. And it tells you here the slime skulls. This is in the book called Tinker's Gadgetry. It's of a sky slime ball. So you can get a skeleton helmet one. You get strong bones and skeleton disguise and spider, drowned, zombie, husk, with a skeleton, etc., etc. The list goes on. There is also the Encyclopedia of Tinkering by using molten gold on a book that you can get, which is pretty much everything you could possibly need to know in Tinker's Construct. You can see there's a hell of a lot here. We've got introduction, tools, armor, upgrades, melee harvesting abilities, slotless, defense, range material. It goes through absolutely everything you could need to know in Tinker's Construct. There is also cheese, which removes a random effect when eaten. To actually get cheese, you could just put milk into the casting table and put it into an ingot cast, and you can actually, well, get cheese. There's a jeweled apple, which gives you haste and resistance, which is molten diamond onto an apple as well. There's loads of glass panes here that you can make, which are really cool. You could just use some brown dye, etc. Like I said, Tinker's adds platforms and a lot of decorative items. There's an EFLN you can make, which is safe for mining, which is an explosion. If you're in creative, there is this creative ability. Use on a tool in the inventory to grant an additional ability slot, or use a tool on it to remove the slot. Just as an FYI, if you are going into creative and testing things, you can use that. If you put things like chickens, etc., into the smeltery, you'll get meat soup, which you can then use. We can alloy it into molten pig iron with honey, meat soup, and molten iron. That's how you get pig iron. But you can also use it to make an actual bowl of meat soup by putting a bowl in a casting table, which I guess you can eat. One cool thing down here is seared soul glass. It's part of the smeltery, cannot store liquids, but can be walked through. And there is also the seared soul glass pane. Again, you can actually walk through these, and you just make them with some soul glass or seared stone over some soul glass, which is liquid souls, which I'm assuming is, oh, good lord, what the hell is all this? Which you can use a wither and other mobs, etc., as well to get liquid souls. I think it's like kind of just anything evil by the look of it, although I can see my own character on there, so I'm not sure. There's some really cool modifiers. You've got ambidextrous, where you can punch with both hands. The anti-aquatic tool does bonus damage to sea creatures. Aqua affinity removes the mining penalty from mining underwater. Auto smelt. Bane of modifier for spiders. I mean, look, there's all of these modifiers that you can look through. I'm not going to read them all out. If you just put @Tinker in JEI and hover over them, you can see all about them. It does tell you exactly what each does, and just hold over, click, and then hover over and press R, and you can see how you can actually make these modifiers and add them to your gear. But as you can see, I'd really have a look through because there's some really, really interesting modifiers in here that you can use. And that is it, guys, for versions 1.16 and above, because that is when Tinker's Construct was completely overhauled. This is it. You have now learnt the entirety of the mod. Again, this mod was actually suggested by the community. Somebody commented down below asking for it, and therefore I made it. So if there's mods you want to see, Forge, Fabric, or anything else, I don't care if they're unknown, popular, I actually love it when it's mods that I've not heard of, because it can be really interesting for me to learn them. I find it very fun. Please do comment down below. It really helps me run this channel and know what you guys want to see next. I will be doing a Tinker's Construct 1.12 and below guide as well, which when it's finished, I'll pin it in the top comment, because, as I said, Tinker's Construct was overhauled in 1.16 and above, which is the version you're seeing in this tutorial, but there is a completely different version for 1.12 and below. It was from 1.8 to 1.12, so I will do a separate tutorial series on that as well. If you are new to the channel, of course, please do subscribe, but do check out the homepage here, because you can see I've got a shelf for tech mods, I've got a shelf for magic mods, and I've got a shelf for utility and standalone mods now as well, which are just standalone videos where the mod only needed one video, for example. And you can also search up here if you're looking for a certain mod.